N.P. Nathan. When I talk about Dr. N.P. Nathan, he is a retired Deputy Director General from GSI and planning and programming of mineral exploration projects in Rajasthan state. So Dr. N.P. Nathan is graduated his undergraduation and completed his undergraduation and post-graduation from Annamalai University with university first rank. And he has completed his doctorate in the year 2004 in the University of Mysore. And he joined GSI as a geologist in 1979. Most of the participants may not have born for at this time. So he has so much of experience. He has joined GSI in 1979 as a geologist, and he has worked in severe capacity, various capacity as senior geologist, superintending geologist, and director. And in the year 2014, he has been promoted as Deputy Director General GSI, and he also retired as a Deputy Director General GSI in 2015. I could not say he is the expertise in only some field. He is the expertise in all field of geology. To say something, I can say he is expertise in petrology, more expertise in petrology, mineral exploration, and geochemistry, I could say. Other things also he is most expertise. And he's having more than 36 years of experience in the field. So you can just imagine the person who has worked in 36 in the field, years of the field. And he is a receiver of most prestigious National Geoscience Award given by the President of India. The most prestigious award. He is a receiver of that award in the year 2011. And keeping his vast experience in the mind, the Geological Society of India has entrusted Dr. N.P. Nathan to prepare a textbook on geology of Tamil Nadu and Puducherry, and he is also doing that. It will be released shortly. It will be useful for the student community. And he has published more than 35 papers in various referred journals. I am talking about only the referred journals, and he has been part of many international professional bodies. He was a member of many professional bodies. So I can say so many things. I can take 1 hour of his time for introducing himself. With this, I just stop. And I request our resource person, Dr. N.P. Nathan, to deliver this lecture. Sir, please come, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gautam. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Dr. Charles and my fellow resource persons are the learned speakers. My special friend, my close friend, Dr. Vijay Kumar, and more so all the participants who will be hearing this lecture. First of all, I would say that I will not go into the fundamental theoretical aspects of any of the issues. Theoretical aspects are well dealt by your professors in the classroom lectures. Being a field geologist, we will be exposing you to different terrains, how the geology, what we learn in the classroom, how it is applied and how the results are brought out. This is the ultimate product that a geologist is expected to do. I am happy a wide range of people from different organizations doing the final year MSc or research or the young geoscientists have joined this webinar. You are all the budding geoscientists, and the future of the country lies in the hands of you. Because after completing your PG or research, you will be joining some organizations. There you will be taking some assignment, be it geological mapping or mineral exploration or environmental impact assessment or geotechnical studies or dimension stone assessments. So geology has got a wide range of applications. So you will be choosing your profession depending upon availability at that time or of your choice. So for all these things, the connecting point is the geology. Unless we know the basics of geology, the geological setting and the structure of a given area, we will not be able to tackle the problem that we are going to handle. So when a problem is taken up, so we have to understand the local geology, the structure, and how we are going to approach that problem. So from that angle, I will be giving and slightly biased towards the mineral exploration. So ultimate our country, with all so much of money government is spending on the science and other things, the government will be expecting the return from our community. So naturally, our efforts, after understanding the overall geology and tectonic evolution, our program should be oriented towards mineral exploration. We should prove some mineral deposits at the end of the day, so that the country's economic position is improved. So that is the role of our geoscientists in the as far as the government is concerned. So okay, we can do research, we can publish papers, very good. That is for understanding the evolution. So towards that objective, you people, you are going to now enter into the professional organizations. So you must have an exposure to the geology of the India, and more particularly to start with, since we are located in Tamil Nadu, I will be presenting the details of the geology of Tamil Nadu and the structure. This is not a 1 year job or 2 years job. This is the work carried out by thousands and thousands of geoscientists of GSI and other research organizations, academic institutions, over this 160, 70 years, 170 years of time. It has evolved. The basic data will remain same. The models will get evolved. Models will get changed. Because the one person looking at the problem, the other person will be seeing in a different angle. With more and more of new field data and the geochronology comes into, our understanding of the evolution of the terrain also gets modified. So I will be interviewing all these aspects in my lecture, so that at the end of the day, you will be able to identify certain areas of interest for choosing your research area, PhD, or for any other professional assignments. And similar thing in other terrains, how we have to approach for locating the mineral deposits. This is the overall introduction that we just started that with this lecture, so that we will be giving an introduction to the geology of Tamil Nadu. This may be more beneficial to the people who are actually working in the Tamil Nadu state, HGT. So similar things we have to understand for the other regions when you are posted in that particular area. Okay. So with that, I once again thank Dr. Gautam for giving an exemplary introduction about me, so that I may not deserve all those things. And the principal was, yes, knowledge sharing is a very, very vital in this today's world. Keeping knowledge by ourselves is not going to use. We are not going to be utilized by others. So whatever we know will be shared with that. So that is not the final. And more so in geology, I never think that whatever is today we are telling it is the final, eternal. This always get changed. That is where we our open mindedness. We learn, we see, we hear from Nathan, but we form our own opinion, we form our own targets. So with that objective, I would invite you to kindly give a patient hearing to my lecture, though it may be slightly exceeding 1 hour. So at the end of the day, at the end of the lecture, I will be trying to answer some of the questions which you want to get it clarified from me. Thank you. Now I will go to the topic. Hope I am audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are clear, sir. Your audio is clear, sir.
This is the title, and the email ID and the phone number, everything is given there. So overall, this is the geological map of India, which was published way back in 1995-96. So by the time we have almost completed the entire country, accessible part of the entire India, covering 3.14 million square kilometers. This is the accessible area of our country. 1 million, you all know, it is equivalent to 10 lakhs. So around 31.4 lakh square kilometer areas have been covered and the geological map is prepared. This is just to give an introduction that the base map is already available on a particular scale. Now we have to crop out, we have to select the area depending upon the problem that you want to deal. Accordingly, you can go into the details of the area. Now you all know this is all which is taught in your classrooms. The entire peninsular shield has been divided into 5 major cratons. That is, your southernmost is the Dharwar craton. Then we have the Bastar craton, then Singhbhum craton, and Budelkhan craton, the Aravalli craton. So nomenclature may get verified by different authors, and the Meghalaya also is now considered as a part of the cratons. The cratons are the ancient crust or the older crust which has been stabilized, and there is no major tectonic disturbances in the post-Archean times. So they are the really sheet anchors. They are already anchored to the mantle. So that is the very stabilized crust that we have. And all these cratonic parts are surrounded by the mobile belt. So we have the southern part, it is known as the Pandian mobile belt. So this is a term only Dr. Ramakrishnan used to refer in his papers, but otherwise people call it as a southern granulite terrain, entire thing. Then we have the Eastern Ghat mobile belt in the eastern part of the Dharwar Kraton. The point, this is the one Eastern Ghats mobile belt. So we will be dealing with these portions only, we will be seeing in the Tamil Nadu part. So this is the map prepared by Professor R. Sharma of the Jaipur, Rajasthan University, Jaipur. So here again the same picture, the Kraton and mobile belts are given, and the red block is the area that we are going to deal with it. Here we will be dealing partly the southern part of the Dharwar Kraton and the major part of the Pandian mobile belt or the southern granulite terrain. Now this is a very rudimentary thing which I can skip it also. This igneous sedimentary metamorphic is all taught in your BSc geology also. What I want to stress is the ultra basic rocks from the mineralization point of view. From the acid rocks, we can granite, pegmatites, these systems. Generally, we look for Re, then tin tungsten. Then in the alkaline rocks, cyanite and associated carbonatites, we look for Re, uranium, thorium. When we come into the ultra basic rocks, ultra basic rock is a group of rock which contains dunite, peridotite, pyroxenite, and then olivine hornblendite. And this particular rock is significant from the point of mineralization of chromium, nickel, platinum, gold. On the high value metals, we can look for in this type of geological mellow. That is why this particular understanding of this ultramafic belt, ultramafic rock is very important from the point of view. So we have to understand this ultra basic rocks, and this is divided as per the Stecheson's classifications based on the olivine and then the orthopyroxene, clinopyroxene assemblages. Today, the dunite is the early cumulates, which is essentially olivine rich monomineralic rock with a minor amount of your opaques like chrome spinel or chromite and other things. Whereas the peridotite is the olivine plus pyroxenes, both orthopyroxene and clinopyroxene will be there. So if we have olivine plus orthopyroxene is predominant, then we call it as Herzbergite. And when the olivine and clinopyroxene is dominant, it is Berlite. And when we have olivine plus orthopyroxene and clinopyroxene together, we see it is a Lherzolite. Then with the decreasing proportion of olivine and increasing of pyroxenes, it becomes the olivine websterite, and finally it is the websterite. These are different classifications that we have. Once we do the investigation in an ultramafic rocks, characterization of the ultramafic rocks in terms of its mineralogy, and pigeonholing in them into these sort of classifications would help you in understanding the evolution of the rocks and the potential of that particular target lithology in terms of this platinum and the nickel and other chromium mineralizations. Then another one is the ultra potassic rocks. This is again very significant. Ultra potassic, the high K2O rich rock. This is a clan of rock which is known as KCR, kimberlite clan rocks. This includes kimberlite, lamproite, and lamprophite. So you all know the kimberlite and lamproite is the host for diamond. So we have one, though several kimberlite pipes have been identified in our country, the only working mine is the Panna diamond field where the Majagon pipe is there. Though initially it was considered as kimberlite, later work by Scott Smith and others considered to be lamproite. Nevertheless, whether it is kimberlite or lamproite, it is only due to the overlapping chemistry and other discrimination. But they are the host for the diamond. So even here, I just included one photograph just to have an idea how the kimberlite will look like. Are you able to see this one? Here you will having the mantle journalists also within this. Those things from the research point of view, at what depth it was formed, asthenophoric mantle, and these samples gives us a good clue about the generation of the kimberlites and then the diamondiferous nature of this. And you all know the kimberlite indicator minerals. The kimberlites are amenable for easy weathering. So those minerals that are characteristic of this kimberlite clan of rocks, like your garnet. Garnet also it is G9, G10 garnet. You know Dawson has classified the garnet into 10 types, out of which the G9, G10 garnets are more indicator for this diamond. Then tetrafluorobite, picroilmenite, chrome diopside, and these are the things which are the kimberlite indicator minerals. Many places we may not have the outcrop, it is weathered and in the soil cover. So if we are able to get these indicator minerals in the stream sediments or in the soil bed, the weathered profile, so we are sure that we are going to get the kimberlite nearby. So that is the approach we must have. Only to get, lamprophire is a sort of an alkaline rocks, though it may not directly host the diamond. It is going in the clan of the kimberlite clan rocks. Okay, this is just to give an idea when we deal with these things, how we have to understand the lithology and then the classification, then the associated elements or the minerals that are useful as a pathfinder or indicator for targeting our metallurgy. So now we come into the so can we Charles sir?
Yes, sir.
Can this because part of the slide is covered by this our photographs.
Yeah.
So can we hide it or can we keep it in the left side?
No, sir.
Not possible.
Yeah.
We'll
Okay.
try. Please carry on.
Anyway. So this gives this everybody knows because this is the Southern Peninsular Shield geological map from India map. Now we have come to the Southern Peninsular Shield because we are now concerned with the Southern Peninsular Shield. So here, as we told the earlier, this is entire thing is the Dharwar Craton. And we have the Kadapa Basin, then Nallamalai Fold Belt, then the Eastern Ghat Mobile Belt we are getting. This is the Dharwar Craton. And Craton, as I told you, this is the ancient crust of Archean age. We have the geological history starting from 3.4, that is 3,400 million years. That is the oldest gneiss identified in Gorur area. From 3.4 up to 2.6, 2.5, 2.4, we have the geological history, different rock types giving this wide range of age connotations. So for this, for your comprehension, I have just given, just to recapitulate what we have read in our geochronology chapter. These Archean rocks, that is the oldest rocks, which up to 2,500 million years. Any rock older than 2,500 million years, we group under the Archean age. Then overlying the Archean is the Proterozoic here. This Proterozoic, Proterozoic is divided into Paleoproterozoic, Mesoproterozoic, and Neoproterozoic. The time interval is up to 1600 Paleo, 1000 is Mesoproterozoic, from 1000 to 540, it is the Neoproterozoic. Because we will be dealing while discussing, we will be telling this rock is of Neo-Archean age, this rock is of Paleoproterozoic age, this rock is of Neo-Proterozoic age. So you can relate immediately what would be the age range for that particular rock types. Of course, the Neoproterozoic is further divided into Tonian, from 1000 to 740 or so, Tonian, then 740 to 630 it is Cryogenian, then 630 to 540 that is the Ediacara. So let us not go too much details into that. Let us keep it as the entire bracket as a Neoproterozoic. Now, if you see the Dharwar Craton, in the northern part, northwestern part, it's all covered by Deccan traps. So the major part of the Dharwar Craton is of greenstone belts occurring within over the peninsular gneisses. Within the peninsular gneisses is about, it is giving a wide range 3.4 to up to 3 million years. So within that there is a older supracrystals which is referred as sargurs, which are occurring here and there as a enclaves or large small schist belts only. But the major greenstones are these Dharwars. All these green ones, green. This is the major Chitradurga schist belt extending from Gadag in the north up to almost Mysore and Mandya, Mysore and further south. This is the Chitradurga schist belt. So within each schist belt, we will have some remnants of the older Sargurs, then the Dharwars. Dharwar, you know, it is Bababudan and Chitradurga group like that. So these gneisses form the basement for the Dharwars. Then there is a major granitic event, that is the north-south meridian. This is known as the close-pit granite. It starts from Ilkal in the north and going down into the Kabaldurga further south. So this entire, this one, it has got a different age, different phases rather. Starting from 2.6 up to 2.4, we have different components of this granite within this close-pit granite. This close-pit granite was earlier considered as the dividing line of the Dharwar Craton into the western Dharwar and then eastern Dharwar. So western Dharwar is essentially a volcano-sedimentary package. They call it as a Dharwarian type. Whereas when we come into the eastern Dharwar, east of this close-pit granite, so subsequently it has been redefined by some people that the Chitradurga schist belt eastern margin is the dividing line between western Dharwar and eastern Dharwar. In the eastern Dharwar Craton also, we have several schist belts. We have Hatti-Maski schist belt, Ramagiri Panakacharla schist belt, Kadiri schist belt, Sundupalli schist belt, Penamuru schist belt. So many schist belts coming from Andhra Pradesh into the northern margin of Tamil Nadu. So these things are essentially a volcanic ridge where with minor sedimentaries. This is known as the Kivatian type. So time equivalent both are more or less same, but the association difference is brought out in the western Dharwar and the eastern Dharwar Craton. And what we are more, then it is overlain by the Kadapa sedimentaries, then the eastern Ghat mobile belt. Why this mobile belt concept has come? As we know, the cratonic part are the older crust, which are showing mostly the Archean history. Whereas in the mobile belt, we have younger events, younger imprints in form of granulite facies metamorphism, shearing. Those things are very dominantly reported here. And that is why this is discriminated as divided. And the lithology wise also it is different. This is Eastern Ghat mobile belt is mostly of a Mesopotamia, Grandvillian orogeny they call it. It's a 1100 million year belt, that one. Then when we come into the south of it, so which is extending into Tamil Nadu, with which we are more concerned. So this is actually the gray one you are seeing in the, this is the Coorg granulites, and this is BR Hills granulites, and we get into this Arcad granulite, and coming into the St. Thomas Mount Pallavaram, the type area Charnakite. So you are seeing whatever we have got in the green schist to lower upper amphibolite facies within the Dharwar Craton, its grades in the grade in terms of metamorphic increase in the grade of metamorphism, it gets converted into granulites. This is what the theory which was first identified in Kabaldurga section, where the gneisses and the granites they are getting converted into the granulites. This is the prograde metamorphic increase from north to south. The whole Dharwar terrain has been converted into the granulite terrain. So this is the situation, and this line which is separating the amphibolite facies and the granulate facies like this. This is known as the Fermer line. Fermer recognized this line. That is where the orthopyroxene started appearing in the rock. So that is the granulite. Non-Charnacatic region, north of it, north of Fermer line, and Charnacatic region, south of Fermer line. That was the initial idea Fermer proposed. Then we brought in this Craton mobile belt concept, and then this northern granulite, southern granulite line. So these granulitic portions, they continue with the Archean imprints up to this Palakkad Kaveri shear zones. Whatever age data we have got here in St. Thomas Mount, that is your type area Pallavaram, it's all in the range of 2.6 by all isotopic systematics. Though some older ages of 3.0 is reported by Unnikishan Warrior, predominantly by all the authors, they have agreed it's a 2.6. And we have, though in BR Hills, we have on older protolith age, the metamorphism is 2.6. So they considering that the entire granulites are mostly of Archean age, that is 2.6 metamorphic imprint. And this history continues. This history continues up to the Palakkad Kaveri lineament. Even within this Palakkad Kaveri, we have the Nilagiri Massif. which is again 2.6 granulites. Yes, 2.6 means 2600 million years. 2.6, it is a billion year, I am telling GA. Now in terms of million, it is 2600. It may be 2544, 2534. I will not go into the exact figure. I generalize it as a 2600 million years. And we have the age data for these Kollimalai Pachamalai also by Chowdhury and others from IIT Roorkee. So they have got same 3000 to 2.6. Several workers now concentrating in this block, they have got the Archean age extending up to the Palakkad Kaveri shear zone. And lithology wise, this is one thing is the geochronology. When we see the lithology, the northern part, the terrain which is the granulite terrain lying north of the Palakkad Kaveri shear zone, they are all essentially Charnakite and they converted into migmatite with interbands of pyroxene granulite and banded magnetite quartzite. The meta sedimentary units are very less. Here and there, some small bands of garnet sillimanite gneisses or cardiorite gneisses are reported in the St. Thomas Mount type area as well as in the Javadi Hills areas. Not much of meta sedimentary is associated here in the northern terrain. Whereas in the terrain south of PCSR, that is Palakkad Kaveri shear zone, it is predominantly a platformal sequence. That is your quartzite, pellite, carbonate sequences. These are the predominant platformal sequences associated with the Charnakite in the south of Palakkad Kaveri zones. So lithologically, these two are different. Then we have so much of dike activity in the northern granulate terrain. So much of dike swarms. All the dikes of Tamil Nadu are confined to the terrain north of Palakkad Kaveri shear zone. So, but once we come south of Palakkad Kaveri shear zone, the dikes are almost nil. Or here and there, one or two dikes, minor dikes you will have, but the dike activity is totally absent. So the dikes are actually the sheet anchors. So that is the cretonization event that has happened place around 1800 that time, 1800 to 1700 ages. That is what in Tamil Nadu, these dike activities and the aspects of the commercial aspects of the dikes will be dealt by my friend Dr. Kanishkan in a couple of days after. So those time you will be seeing how the dikes are emplaced and what is its spatial relations. So in terms of lithological assemblages, we are seeing a contrasting history on either side of the Palakkad Kaveri shear zone. In terms of dike activity, north we have so much intense dike swarms, south absolute almost nil. Geocontrasting age provinces, the granulites which are occurring north of Palakkad Kaveri shear zone, they are all metamorphosed during this late Archean event, that is 2.6 to 2.4, that is the event. Whereas south of Palakkad Kaveri, there is a widespread granulate facies metamorphism during 550 million years, which they call it as a Pan-African granulate facies metamorphism. So that is 2.6 and this is the Pan-African 550 terrain. So based on these contrasting dissimilarities between these the terrain, granulate terrain lying north of Palakkad and south of Palakkad, this is considered as the in between the central zone, the Kaveri suture zone is considered as the suture between the Dharwar Craton and the southern mobile belt, be it Pandyan mobile belt or whatever mobile belt we call it. So that 550 million year old mobile belt, it is accreted into the Dharwar Craton. So this is the overall understanding. Now we will go into the details of the individual terrain, individual blocks in the subsequent slides. Okay. So up to this, I think I have made it clear. This is all the existing views, nothing I have told on my own. This is all the prevailing views. Though the dividing line of this Craton and mobile belt are getting modified with this Palakkad Kaveri is slightly shifted towards the Karur Kambam Paina Trishur shear zone. You are able to see in this slide KKPTSZ. This is defined by Ghosh, Jayagopal Ghosh of GSI based on this content. Because in between that terrain, the PCS and KKPTS, he is getting Archean ages. So if we get more Archean ages south, we have to redefine that line. So Bhaskar Rao has defined it as the Karur Vatanjatram shear zone. Now the recent work, Brand et al. based on the intensive geochronology. They consider right from Moyar Bhavani lineament, the entire thing is a younger terrain, where the Madurai block they dividing into Western Madurai domain and the Eastern Madurai domain, based on mainly on the geochronological input. The age data is now playing a very crucial role in refining the tectonic model proposed by the earlier workers. Now we will go to the next slide. Now this is, I have carved out the Tamil Nadu part alone from the overall southern peninsular shield map. So the entire thing, this is the Tamil Nadu and it is bordering the adjoining state Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka and Kerala. This geology does not have any administrative barriers. Whatever lithology that we get in Andhra Pradesh, we are likely to get it in the northern part of Tamil Nadu. So also in the Karnataka, it will extend into this terrain. And here it will be extending into the Kerala. From Tamil Nadu, it will be going into the Kerala. So once we put to this SPS map, that regional picture will become. So it is here about area of about 130 square kilometer. This is the entire Tamil Nadu covers this much area. This has been almost completed. One is 50,000 map we have already completed. It is available in the portal. Any particular topo sheet, if you want to have a geological map of 1 is 50,000 scale, you can always source it from the GSI portal. Then what are the major rock types that we are going to see in this Tamil Nadu? So as far as the older metamorphic rocks are concerned, it is the Charnakites, which is generally called as granulites. Yes, it may be Charnakite or Charnoenterbite or enterbite if we go into the classification. Generally, it is Charnakite. Then quartzite pellite carbonates. This sort of sequences are more predominantly developed in the southern part. In the southern part, that is in AGT. What I have shown, the south of Palakkad Kaveri lineament, we will be seeing more of these metasedimentries, that is quartzite, pellite, carbonate sequences. In the northern part, they are very little. And these entire sequences of the Charnakite and quartzite, pellite, carbonate sequences, they undergone migmatization, and that is converted into migmatites and the gneisses. The pink portion, which you are seeing in the map, are the migmatites and gneisses derived from these older granulites and the associated metasedimentries. Then we have another group of rocks, which is the ultramafic complexes, which are very essential from the mineralization point of view, as I told, chromium, nickel, PGE, and gold. So here, so this particular terrain, this is known as the Kaveri Sucha zone, I told na. This is defined by Moyar shear lineament, Moyar Bhavani Atur shear zone, and this is the Palakkad Kaveri shear zone. This particular terrain, which is the considered to be the suture between the northern Archean and the southern Proterozoic mobile belt, Neoproterozoic mobile belt. So this belt has got a unique lithology in the sense we have the Neo-Archean or the late Archean ultramafic complexes coming from Kerala, Attapadi Valley. We have the Metupalayam. On all these places, we have the ultramafic, and here we have the major anorthosite ultramafic complex that is known as the Sitamundia, which you might all very well know because it's a very classical complex, layered anorthosite complex on which a lot of work has been done. And this is one of the promising area from the platinum mineralization point of view. So within this belt, we will have the ultramafics and the younger alkaline carbonatite complexes. They are mostly in a major shear belts, shear zones, because they are in the extensional tectonic regimes. We get these alkaline carbonatite complexes. In Tamil Nadu, we have 140-kilometer wide and around 120-kilometer long Dharmaburi shear zone, shear belt. So this particular shear zones host a number of alkaline plutons, each one having a different lithological complex, lithological variations, ending with a carbonatite, which is the good host for rare metal, uranium, and other mineralizations. Then the mafic dikes which I already told. Then the eastern part, when we come, we have the Phanerozoic sediment. This entire belt, this is the crystalline rock, and here is the eastern coast. We have all the Phanerozoic sediments. We have upper Gondwanas in the northern part, Sriperumbudur Avadi formation, then the Kanjipuram formations. Then we have we have the Cretaceous rocks, Trichy Cretaceous, very famous, well-studied sections we have. This is the Pondicherry Cretaceous. Then we have the Myopliocene sequences, which are known as the Kadalur sandstones, which host the vast resources of lignite, energy minerals. We have already Neyveli, then Jayangondam, Mannargudi, now Ramanad. Now all these sub-basins, the lignite resources are being now assessed by GSI. Then the younger, the light yellow color which you get is the quaternary sediments. As far as the structural part, fold, fault or lineament, these are the things which you are already taught in your classrooms. Those are the things which are to be recognized in the field. And the whatever we have plotted here, these are the lineaments. Lineaments a linear feature, in which we have not recognized much of displacement or movement or shearing. That we generally call it as a lineament. Any linear dislocation zones or any linear fractures, we put it as a lineament. In the shear zones, where is the well-documented ductile or brittle shearing event manifestations with the sense of movement very clearly demonstrated. We have several shear zones. This Moyar shear zone, it has been very well studied by earlier people, R. Srinivasan, Naga, and from Roorkee, Jainsov, and so many people have expressed different views, either it is strike slip or the dip slip component, and a lot of work has been done in the eastern part. So the in-between sector will not have much manifestation. Nevertheless, we call the entire thing as the Moyar, Bhavani, Athur shear zone. Because again, this Athur segment, we have intense shearing. That is known as the Athur shear zone. So Moyar, Bhavani, Athur shear zone defines the northern limit, and the Palakkad Kaveri shear zone is the southern one, where the shearing imprints are not very well to document it. But when we come into the southern part, there is Achangoil shear zone. This is again another very prominent shear zone. This is very well studied by Guru Rajesh and T.R.K. Chetty, and so many people have then Jackson Ambiar, Rajesh. So many people have documented. Now this is another terrain boundary which they consider, and in all these shear zones are useful in global correlation with the erstwhile Gondwana fragments with Madagascar. They are now trying to link it up with the Madagascar and try to correlate what was the pre-breakup configuration of this southern Tamil Nadu, southern India with the other crustal fragments. Then suture zone is the term which we use it only because this particular terrain, this long belt, tectonic belt, which brings together these two contrasting lithological assemblage terrain as well as the geochronology differences also there. In view of this is considered as a suture zone, which is Kaveri suture or Palakkad Kaveri suture zone, and it is manifested by these ultramafics, which some people call it as a ophiolite, which are emplaced in a supra-subduction zone tectonic setting. This is the Sitamundi, and we have the Devanur also we have. Then in the southern, near the Palakkad Kaveri shear zone, here near Karur, there is one ophiolite has been recognized, so Manamed. So these are the evidences which are going in support of the suture zone concepts. Okay, so that is how these are the broad terminologies or the tectonic divisions which we are following in this. This is proposed by our eminent my senior Mr. K. Gopalakrishnan. He conceptualized this tectonic model based on the very little contrasting litho assemblages in different sub-blocks. Though we correlate the entire thing up to north of Palakkad, one single, that is northern granulate terrain and the southern granulate terrain. Within the northern granulate terrain, there are several blocks have been identified which are contrasting with the dissimilarity that we will be seeing in the subsequent slides. Each block will be bounded by the lineament or the shear zones. So that we can see here. Now I am starting from the northernmost block, that is known as Chittoor block, which is bordering Andhra Pradesh. So we have the Andhra Pradesh is the immediate adjoining terrain, where we have the peninsular gneisses. Gopal Reddy has done extensive work and brought out two types of gneisses, TTG and TGA, a group of gneisses, that is tonalite tronjomite, and then this tronjomite, the granodiorite, adamalite, that of younger potash rich. These two varieties of gneisses he has brought out with a lot of schispels, Penumuru, Sundapalli schispels. When we come into this Chittoor block, that is which is lying immediately on the south of Andhra Pradesh, We have, this is your sedimentary crystalline, broadly sedimentary crystalline contact. Best of it, this is all crystalline rock. So what means is the older rocks, Archean Proterozoic rock, whereas this is all the younger Paleozoic and younger Phanerozoic group of metasediments here. So here, what is we are getting is, we do not have any major Charnockite because it is immediately south of Fermor line and immediately north of Fermor line. Our Charnockite comes only south of this polar lineament. South of the polar lineament, south of this only we will be getting. You can see here. So this blue color, this is the Charnockite. You are seeing abruptly it is terminating against this polar lineament. North of that, we do not. This mostly amphibulate facies gneiss, similar to what we get in Andhra Pradesh. But our recent mapping, in which Mr. Vijay Kumar is one of the key worker, he has recognized the incipient Charnockite type of development, what we see in Kapaldurga and other places, within these gneisses. Within these gneisses, there are some incipient Charnockite, that is Vallimalai. There is a place called Vallimalai. So, in those quarry sections, we can see there is a prograde metamorphic imprint of the gneisses getting converted into a Charnockite. Nevertheless, it is essentially an amphibulate facies terrain. And we have the younger, the granitoids, the gneisses and the granite. This is known as the Schollinger granite. This granite is also for older age. This is 2.305. That is 2,305 million years. That is we have dated. So it is most of a Paleoproterozoic age. These granitoids are the anatectic product of these megmatites and the gneisses and the associated supracrystals. And what is very significant in this is the dike swamps. Extensive dike swamps. The Chittur dikes are very famous for dimension stones, both in terms of black variety, these normal dolerite dikes, and the porphyritic gabbro dikes, which I will be showing. So once we come into the eastern part of the Chittur block, we have this the east of the sedimentary fault. Here we have predominantly these upper Gondwanas, about which our another learned speaker, Dr. Kumaraguru, will be dealing with this. So these are all the upper Gondwanas, Sriperumbudur formation, Satyavedu formation, or Avadi formation. And these things, again, taking cue from the occurrence of coal in other Gondwana basins. So he has tested, a deep boreholes have been drilled in these Gondwana basin rocks to see whether there is any possibility of getting the this sort of energy lignite or the coal in this, but we are not successful in that. Then we have the laterites and the younger sediments. This is the broad lithological assembly that we get it. This is a compiled map based on the first generation map. Now I will show you how the recent maps are made. This is actually the basic job of any geologist for anything. The mapping is this stepping stone, the starting point. Unless you are able to recognize the different varieties and plot it on a map on a scale which you choose, either 1 is to 25,000 or still larger scale, and bring out the different litho units and their interrelationship, we will not be able to build up the stratigraphy. We will not be able to identify the target areas for our mineral exploration. So here, what is this? As I told, the essentially it is the gneisses. Even within the gneisses, how the people have worked and differentiated this. When we do it on a larger scale, we will be able to bring out the differences. The light pink color is the essentially the hornblende biotite gneiss of a granodiorite composition. This is the peninsular gneisses, what we get in Andhra Pradesh. The same gneisses, when we come into the shear zone, this is a Ponnai river. So we have marked the shear zone. When the same gneisses, when it is affected by the shearing, it is converted into epidote hornblende gneiss. The plagioclase in the gneisses are getting converted into epidote. So it is profuse development of epidote, and the pistachio green color will mark that entire gneisses. So we have to differentiate it. And that is related to your shearing. Then we have the granitoids, that is 2,300 I told now. So those are the granitoids, the Schollinger, and this is equivalent to granitoids we have. And the much of the pavement stones, your slabs you are seeing in the entire Chennai city, it is all mostly coming from these quarries. That is the nearest granite quarry. Whatever quarries we have within the city are mostly Charnockite. These granites are coming from Sholingar and further north in Tirthani and on the way to Tirupati also people are quarrying these granite types. Then you can yourself can appreciate the intensity of dike swarms that you are seeing within this. Are you able to see these green lines? These are all the basic dikes or the mafic dikes. Either a dolerite or some places it will be gabbro. They are predominantly east-west trending dikes and some are north-south dikes are also. So the age rating it is giving around 1600 and some the younger north-south dikes are younger which is giving 1000 to 1100 degrees centigrade. Mallikarjuna Rao has done extensive work in the Kadapa dikes. So taking analogy from that, we can say though there is not much age data has been generated for this particular terrain. Here, as far as the mineral potential is concerned, this particular block, that is Chittur block, we have the dikes which are commercially quarried as diamond stone. These granites, we know this is for the building stones and other things. There says that there are some alkaline remnants of alkaline activity, some minor rebaggate bearing cyanides and associated carbonatite. They are the good targets for REE mineralizations. So that is the overall picture about the Chittur block. And now we will go to the this I will give some of the field photographs. The gneiss that I have been referring in this Chittur block, how this is the megmatic gneiss we will get within this. So you can see the older Paleozoom, which is occurring as the Acmatic or Genolis within this. And these are the lighter material, the neozomes, which has come out as a partial melting of this pre-existing gneisses and giving rise to different megmatic structures. That is, this is agmatic structure. That is the initial stage of megmatization. If you go by the Menard's classification, okay, this is the type of gneisses we get within this. And when it is sheared, I was showing some shearing. So this is the feature that you will be seeing in the sheared contact. This is the gneiss, and this is the contact is sheared. You see, are you able to see the grain size reduction here? And there is the fabric, close spaced fabric developed in this. There are the class. So this is the effect of shearing on these gneisses at the contact of. This is how we have to recognize in the field and then try to map it on our map. So I told you the dikes. There are dolerite dikes which give jet black color. There are gabbro dikes, porphyritic gabbros. Porphyritic gabbros.
இதுல ஒரு இமெயில் உங்களுக்கு இருக்கும்ல ஜியாலஜி 2020
Porphyritic gabbros. Excuse me. I will tell Balu to.
கொடுக்க முடியாது. நான் இப்போ ப்ரோக்ராம் கண்டக்ட் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கேன் சார். நான் உங்களுக்கு அப்புறமா இப்போ வந்து ஃபார்ம் ஃபில் அப் பண்ணதுல உங்களோட இமெயில் கட் ஆஃப் பண்ணிருக்கீங்க, அதனால உங்களுக்கு போயிருக்காது சார்.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am.
Sharma.
Okay. So, sir, Gautam sir, yourself and Charles' voice are crossing. So please put off your mute your mic.
சொல்லுங்க சார். மேம்
your mic, you may mute your mic.
50
I am studying in Veranamadu.
ஆமா. முதல்ல 24.
Hello.
இல்ல 50 ஆகி நாங்க 7 வருஷமா போட்டுட்டு இருக்கோம்.
Anyway, okay. So these are the dikes, and you can see the sort of a Enecalon shift. It's a left lateral shift. That is a sinistral shift you can see in the dikes. Okay. These are some of the features that of this particular Chittur. I am only exposing you to the field, how it will look like that are porphyritic dikes. This dike you can see in many of our kitchen slabs or in hotel dining table top. They will be using after polishing. It will give you a good porphyritic. Now we come into this. We have seen the northern block, that is your Chittur block. Now we are going to see this block, which is known as the Madras block, or some people call it as a Madras Salem block, because it starts from Madras and the Salem is here. It covers the entire stretch. So Madras Salem block we will tell. This Madras Salem block contains the type area of Charnakite in St. Thomas Mount. You all know this is the type area from where the Charnakite was taken to the Job Charnak Museum and then mausoleum, and then the name is derived from the Charnak, Job Charnak. So this particular granulate terrain, it is bound by the polar lineament in the north. Why it is separated now? You see the abrupt contact. These granulites, they come and abruptly end against the polar lineament. So it is a tectonic contact in this particular terrain. And on the north of it, we have the amphibulate facies gneiss. Immediately south of it, we have the granulite facies, that is your charnockite, interbanded pyroxene granulite, and banded magnetite quartzites. All these granulites, most of them are giving 2600 million years. That is the Neo-Archean age. This from the type area as well as in Salem block or in Javad Hills areas. All the ages are giving late Archean ages, 2600 metamorphic imprint ages. And this has undergone migmatization. These charnockite and the associated assemblages, granulite assemblages, they have undergone migmatization during Paleoproterozoic times. That is, and giving rise to this gingy migmatite. This pink color you are seeing in where it is an MB. Yeah, this one. These are all the gingy migmatite, which has been dated as a 2254, 2254 million years. That is Paleoproterozoic by Dr. M.N. Balasubramanian and his group. So this migmatization is subsequent to the granulate phase metamorphism, that is your Paleoproterozoic. And at the culmination of this migmatization, we get the granites, that is the gingy granite. These red ones are the gingy granite, where many of people who are from Tamil Nadu, who has traveled towards Gingy, you would have seen that fort, Raja Desingu Fort is located on this hill. That hill is made up of the granites, which are the culmination of this migmatization. You will be getting some porphyritic varieties also within these granites. Okay, so we have seen the older rocks now, and these, as we come in this, there are some ultramafic rocks are also there in Thorapadi, Manmalai. They have been investigated for platinum group of elements, PG. Although we got up to 100, 200 ppb of values, not much significant zone could be delineated in these Thorapadi ultramafic complexes. And this particular terrain, this granulate terrain of this Madurai block, Madras Salem block, is again characterized by the banded magnetite, large iron ore bands we have got here. Kaudi Malai, Vedi Malai, and all those things have huge resources of iron ore. That is in terms of magnetite quartzite. It will have only 35 to 38% iron. So that's why not much, the people are not showing much interest, though Jindal has applied a lease for that. So within that BI, there are some shear zones, and in which the gold mineralization, possibility of gold within this BMQs have also been studied, but it is all of academic interest in this. So this is the overall picture, and this particular thing is also in all the three sides, it is bordered by the lineament or the shear zones. North you can see the polar lineament, west you can see the Javad Hills lineament, and south this is the extension of the Moyar Bhavani Athur lineament or the Moyar Bhavani Athur shear zone. And the Phanerozoic sedimentary cover comes much here. In the northern part, Tamil Nadu, the sedimentary cover lateral extension is less. As we go south, Pondicherry, Cuddalore, and further south, you will have a wider area of the Phanerozoic sedimentary cover. That these coastal sediments are extended for larger areas in the southern part of Tamil Nadu. So here, when we come into this western part of this terrain, Javad Hills lineament, I told you west of this, there is a major shear zone that is known as Dharmaburi shear zone, which is 40 kilometer wide, extending for 120 and 40 kilometers from here Pakkanadu or the Gedapadi up to this Ambur in the north. It is touching the polar lineament. So it is in the close vicinity of the shear zones. Even within the Madras Salem block, the marginal zones, we will get a lot of these alkaline activities in the form of quartz barite veins. Those quartz barite veins are also mineralized in terms of uranium, thorium, and Re. AMD has done detailed work. I think Dr. Jayagopal, while dealing with the TOPCon atomic minerals, he will be touching upon these sequences. So this is the overall this one. And I told you in the initial stages of the meta sedimentaries are very less in this block. One I was telling here in Pachamala, that is near Tambaram Sanatorium. Those who are in Chennai, they may be knowing the location of Tambaram. So we have in Pachamalai, it is behind the Sanatorium Hospital, we have small bands of the Garatiferous quartzite and Garatiferous ilmenite gneisses. And another one is in the Mamandur area. Mamandor area, we have the garnet sillimanite gneiss occurring within the migmatites. These meta-sedimentaries or the garnet sillimanite gneiss, they host one of the good multi-metal mineralization. Though it is essentially a lead zinc, Kalina sphalerite association, we got good amount of cadmium and silver also. So exploratory up to exploratory mining stage, it was taken up by BGML. Since it was not found to be economical at that stage, this is about 40 years back, I am telling. So there is a need for revisiting this prospect in the light of this modern technologies or the modern concepts. And the extension of this particular Mamandor prospect on either side also to be explored using geophysical techniques. So now we have seen this again, we are still in the Archean terrain, Archean granulate terrain, which is only undergone a magmatization and dike activity is there. Okay, now we move on to the western part. We have seen this is your Madras Chalam block. This lineament I told, this is the Javad Hills lineament. And this is our polar lineament, the continuation of this polar lineament. And the western limit of this thermobaric shear zone is marked by Meteor lineament or a Meteor fault. That is this western one. This particular segment is carved out and referred as thermobaric shear zone, or some people call it as even a thermobaric suture rift zone. Nevertheless, this is a typical of a shear zone because with the intense retrogression of these charnakite into epidote gneiss, you can see here. And concomitant with the shearing, we have emplacement of several alkaline plutons, cyanide carbonatite plutons with associated rare metal and REE mineralization. That is significant from the mineralization point of view. That's why we are giving little more emphasis to this particular belt. We have Yelagiri in the north, that is near Jolarpet, Korati near Tirupattur, Samalpatti west of Uttangarai, and after a long gap, we are getting the Pakanadu carbonatite, which is west of Chelagantapuram. Nevertheless, they are collinear. It is the same belt. Okay. Now we will go little detail of these things in the subsequent slides. So this is the same thing which is a little more colored and recent maps with the structural data plotted. This will be the type of map we geologists used to prepare and then present it. Okay, so that is what we are projecting is a compiled map. In that large, on that scale, we will not be able to present all the details. This is larger maps. All the alkaline plutons we already referred, Yelagiri, Korati, and Samalpatti. Here, as far as the lithology is concerned, besides this alkaline, there are quartz barite veins, which are the end phase of this alkaline magmatic event, which is having a high amount of uranium mineralization. There's a place called Kalarapatti, Alangayam, and all those things are worked by AMD, investigated by because uranium generally is still now it is in the domain of AMD. So they have done a lot of work, and that details Dr. Jay will maybe sharing with you. And one field aspect I would like to just tell you as a field geologist, I am mapping here. I have got a dike here. It is showing in a west northwest east southeast direction. I am seeing it is extending. That is the strike we have to take with the help of pattern. This for field geologists, young scientists, not for the researchers and other senior scientists. I am not telling this. This is only for the students who are going to enter into the mapping terrain. I am just telling them. So here in the Charnakite terrain, we are seeing a dike. Yeah. So I am starting from here. I am tracing this. It is going. It is getting into the epidote gneiss. It is nothing but the retrograded part of this. And once we come into the alkaline pluton, I see that dike is disappearing. And I'm not getting the continuity of the dike into the alkaline pluton Yelagiri. Within the alkaline pluton, how intensely such, you will be getting some small patches, scatter patches of those dikes. What does it indicate? That shows the dikes are older. And the younger alkaline plutons come as a later, and that is why this abutting relationship we are getting, and some sort of carter patches we are dike we are getting within the alkaline pluton. This is how the relative stratigraphy. Age data comes next. So field relationship which is older and which is younger. So another thing, the structural features, how to plot it. There are in a map, there are structural features, there are planar fabrics and linear fabrics. I need not go into the detail of it. Planar fabrics, you know, the foliation, either bedding plane or the foliations or the planar features. Bedding planes we will be getting mostly in the sedimentary rocks, quartzites, or the color banding in carbonate rocks or shales. You will be getting it. Then in the metamorphic rock, in the older rock, you get the foliation, which is the result of deformation and metamorphism, where the alternate layers of the felsic and mafic minerals, they define the foliation. So in this gneiss and the charnakite, which are older rocks, so we get these foliations. You see here, and this we plot it here, and it is dipping towards easterly, southeasterly. Northeast is the northeast is the strike, and dipping is southeast. It's an open triangle we put it. And within this alkaline proton, which is undeformed, unmetamorphosed, there is no secondary foliation developed in it. In some of the places where you are able to see the flow texture, that is your cyanide in equivalent trachytic texture, we call it as. So the feldspar laths within that cyanide will be showing a preferential orientation. So within this circle, we have plotted the flow orientation, and that is showing the yanking towards northeast, isn't it? So that is the thing which we can observe in the igneous alkaline protons. If we are lucky to get that sort of trachytic textures, the Langer axis of the feldspar laths will be aligned towards the direction of movement of those flow material. So this is how we have to observe and plot it on a map here. So this is the Nilagiri, the northern mode. These are the typical ring complexes, which has been dated by Miyazaki. It is 623. The overall alkaline protons are mostly around 700 to 770 million years. That is the Neoproterozoic event only. Younger to the granites, older to the granites. Here we have the different pulses of the cyanides occurring as a concentric rings. That is a ring complex. We have the ultramafic rock occurring in the southeastern part. Here, unfortunately, we do not have any carbonatite. As I told you the earlier in the initial section of my talk, that the alkaline carbonatites will have the ultramafic mafic component. Then the cyanitic silicate fractions will be in the cyanide, and there will be liquid immiscibility carbonatite also occur as a part of this. Unfortunately, we didn't have except this small carbonatite boundary outcrop here in the top of this at Nilaur. We do not have major carbonatite bodies here in this complex. So next we go to the southern one. This is your Korati. Korati, or in literature it is known as Savatur. In AMD literature it will be referred as Savatur alkaline complex. So here also you are seeing the concentric ring shape. These are all the different varieties of cyanide, either hornblende cyanide or pyroxene cyanide or zircon cyanide. Likewise, whatever perceptible variation that you are able to recognize in the field, you are trying to discriminate. Though it may be more of too much detail into it, it can be generalized also. Nevertheless, such a thing, if you are able to visualize in the field, and if you can bring it out in the map, that will be a real good contribution to the understanding of the geology. So we also see the younging in the earlier section. We have shown Korati, the younging is towards north. So we can see the different pulses coming towards the north. And what is interesting is, from the mineralization point of view, this is cut by the shear. This is your Pambar shear. The eastern part, this is your Pambar shear. That is why this concentric rings gets truncated, except this particular ring. All other rings, they get truncated along the shear zone. This is Pambar shear. In the road itself, Korati to Uttangare road, you can study these ones. What is more interesting is this pyroxenite, which is occurring all along the outer periphery of this complex. And in the northwestern part of this complex, we have a large body of the carbonatite. These carbonatites are mostly anchoritic. Calcite variants are known as sovite, magnesium variants, that is dolomitic variants, beforsite, then the iron-rich, people call it as an anchorite or a para-anchorite. So here we have more of that iron-rich variety with a lot of magnetite, which is occurring just like in the Alva. You can see the studs of the cashew nuts studded with that. So likewise, on the surface itself, in a brown carbonatite, you will be getting the black studs of the magnetite. So much of iron enrichment in this. And the AMD work way back in 1980s, they have drilled and they have got the niobium rich minerals, pyrochlore, in this particular prospect here. And we have now recent work with GSA has also shown the RE is up to 5,000 ppm, though mostly it is of LRE. HRE is very less. And another interesting feature is whenever the carbonatite intrudes into the country rock or into the same cogenetic sequence, rocks of the cogenetic sequence, that is your cyanide or in the pyroxenite, there will be phenotization. And in the pyroxenite, we are seeing this alteration, hydrothermal alteration, in the form of pyroxene getting altered to vermiculite. Vermiculite is a type of mica which is characterized by the exfoliation. When you take a large flakes of vermiculite mica, when you light it with a matchstick, it will exfoliate 10 to 12 times, just like a total bloating. And it is being mined by Tamil Nadu Minerals, like state PSU, for this installation, or even it is containing high amount of apatite. So P2O5 is more. So even the finer fractions are used as a manure or the filler. As this one in the field, also agriculture also it is being used. So it has got several industrial applications. So the carbonatite and the associated pyroxenite in the Samalpatti, in these Korati areas, are the potential target from the mineralization point of view in terms of uranium, thorium, RE, and the rare metals like niobium. Okay. Now we go to the next. This is the southernmost here. Because in Samalpatti we have carbonatites, but again there is a controversy. The Russians, they do not agree strictly it is a carbonatite, because the total RE is 400 to 500 ppm only. So they have some reservations that it may not be the true carbonatite, it could be a metacarbonates, which is engulfed by the cyanide and giving rise to these things. So the southernmost one I have taken it because this is one of the typical example where we will get a large monazite grain within this Pakkanadu carbonatite, which was investigated by Surya Narayan Rao and other from AMD. And this is the map that we have prepared, the different varieties of cyanide. And we have in the western part, there is a shear zone. Yeah, this is one. West of Pakkanadu, there is a small valley-like thing, a stream will be going. So that is marked by shear. And within this, we have two major bodies of carbonatite. One is Pakkanadu and another one is Mulakadu. These are all mostly Soviet-rich variety within this. So here again, it is associated with the pyroxenite. Just like Korati, we have the associated pyroxenite and the hydrothermal alteration of the pyroxenite by these invading carbonatite liquids. You can see the development of biotite in this. Here we do not have the vermiculite development in this particular terrain. It is mostly the biotite system. But here, both the things are equally mineralized. The work of AMD in the early 80s, we can see the high values we got both in the pyroxenite as well as in the altered pyroxenite as well as in the carbonatites. So this is some of the field photographs of this Pakkanadu carbonatite I am showing you. This is the pyroxenite. The left one is the pyroxenite, the dark one, and it is intruded by a plagioclase rich rock. That is what we call it as albitite. Albitites are mostly common in sort of major shear zones, and this albitite contains only sodic plagioclase. That is purely albite end members will be more in this, and this is the effect of shearing you are seeing. There is a folding and there is a stitching deformation. You are able to see in this getting bowdinaged, this layer, and progressive stitching. You will see that this thing get detached and it will become a large bowding or organ type. These are all the shear related deformation that we get. Here you can see the folding, all disharmonic folds not having uniform pattern. The darker ones are the pyroxenite. The dirty brown color is the carbonatite. Here we are seeing the albitite. Here we are seeing the carbonatite. Here the carbonatite, they occur as a veins or the flow into the pyroxenite, altering that, and it is together sheared. Now we will come into the mineralization. Now you see here, I told you they are highly altered pyroxenite. Even that one is having allanite, and you are able to see a brown color. This is monazite. A good specimen that I collected from this area, you can see the monazite.
Sir, excuse me, Nathan, sir. Excuse me,
Yes,
sir,
right.
Nathan.
Time watching la.
It is 11:10 now. Sir.
Okay.
I'll just speed up.
Quick. Okay. So
Thank you,
now,
thank you.
okay, now I will skip some of the slides. Now going into the western part. Now from the shear zone, we have gone to the western side, that is the Tatakara Krishnagiri side. So here, this is the transition zone. Here we have the transition zone from the amphibolite facies to the granulate facies. That is the Tatakara. Here we have the Krishnagiri Dharmaburi sector. It's a very good work by the NGRA team. Phillips, Alan Kondi, BL Narayana, Rameshwar Rao, and so many people have Jayananda recently they have worked. So worked with geotherms also. How the temperature pressure conditions increases from north to south. How the amphibolite fish is nices getting converted into charnakite. How the hornblende is giving way to CPX, then CPX to OPX. This sort of mineralogical transformation also has been very well documented in this. And when we come into this western part, where this again, Javadigil selenium, metallineament, and this is this limb is your Moyar Bhavani Athur shear zones. Okay, here we have small gold prospect here, Bensipeta in the Talavadi sections. That is the only gold occurrences that we have got here. This mostly from the commercial. Of course, this is the extension of the Kolar greenstone, where we have the Vapanpalli. This is southern extension of the Kolar, where we have the associated gold mineralizations. So this I have already told you. This is Jayananda's work, where how the work has shown the progressive increase in the metamorphism from Krishnagiri, if you trace it. And when we come into the Kaveri Pattinam, these nices with the hornblende, where this OPX, orthopyroxene, will start appearing. This is the Fermer line, OPX in isograde. South of it, it is mostly the granulites or the charnakite. This is the metamorphic gradation from amphibolite facies to granulate facies. So this is again the western part of this particular domain where I have mapped how the lithological continuity you are seeing from the BR Hills region into the Tamil Nadu shear zones. This is the Moyar Bhavani shear zones. How the Charnakite, this is the Biligarangan Hills granulites of the Karnataka with the associated metasediment, fuchsite, quartzite, and the associated metasediments and the meta-ultramafics, which are very similar to what we get in Sargus. We get here. So people try to call it the Sakarsanhalli in the Kolar belt. And these things continues in this maintaining the Dharwari trend north-south. And as we come into the shear zones, they show the dragging towards west. Are you able to see the north-south trend is dragged towards the west because of this effect of shear? This is what the Drury has told the dextral slip. Of course, Naga and Srinivasan, they do not agree that it is more of a dip slip component. But Jain agrees that it is both strike slip and dip slips are there. So now this is the type of shear zones in the shear zone. This is what is one is seen in the northern part here, prograde from north to south. Now we are in the shear zone. We will be seeing a retrogression of the granulites into the gneisses. These are all some of the evidences of the shear zone. What I told you, Moyar Bhavani shear zone. You will get to the ductile as well as the brittle shear zones. Though in the brittle shear zones, so you can see almost like a falfrexia. You can see the charnakite class, which are in the pseudotachelite. These darker ones are the pseudotachelite. In the thin sections, you can see how the plagioclase twin lamellase are twisted. These are the microscopic evidences for these shearing events. So when south of the shear zones, when we come into the Kaveri suture zone, this is from Gautam Saab.
Yes,
can you extend it for 15-20 minutes? Huh?
Yes, sir. Yes,
This particular belt is very important from the mineralization
please,
point of.
please,
So now I will quickly run through it. This Kaveri suture zone, which we have discussed earlier, it is the suture between the Dharwar Craton and the mobile belt and all these things. Here we have the Neo-Archean ultramafics. In the Attapadi, we have the gold PGE. Here in Metropolitan, we have PGE and gold. And we have some in between buried ultramafics. Then next one is the